we're 3 weeks away until new President Trump's tariffs coming into effect. Are you willing to use Canadian energy as a bargaining chip in trade negotiations with the United States? Yes or no?
We're 3 weeks away from the August deadline. My colleagues, Janice Charette, who's our chief trade negotiator, and Minister LeBlanc, the relevant minister, are both in Washington now, so they're engaging with their counterparts. Look, we will, first and foremost, we're engaged in those negotiations to look to find a mutually beneficial solution, and we're only going to accept a solution that works for Canadians. We have lots of options of what we would do if that's not there. Both positive in terms of supporting the economy and also addressing other issues. But I'm not going to be drawn on what we're going to do. We're going to focus now on building towards an agreement if an agreement is possible.
Canada just made a decision that shocked many people. Instead of using its energy exports as a weapon against the United States, it chose a completely different path. The decision has left many questioning whether Canada gave away its biggest advantage or made a smart move that could pay off in the future. Prime Minister Mark Carney stood in Red Deer, Alberta, beside Premier Danielle Smith and rejected one of the most popular ideas in Canadian politics right now. With 62% of Canadians demanding harder retaliation against Washington and premiers openly discussing weaponizing oil, Carney refused. Of all the commodities Canada has in abundance, he said, trust might be the most valuable of all. Canada's reputation as a reliable supplier, in his view, is worth more than any short-term leverage, and it is not for sale. The location of those remarks mattered as much as their content. Carney delivered them in Alberta, the province that produces the vast majority of Canada's oil, the province whose premier has pushed hardest for a new West Coast pipeline, and the province standing to gain hundreds of billions in royalties from expanded oil exports. Making a housing announcement alongside Premier Danielle Smith in Red Deer, Carney chose Canada's oil capital to declare that the oil would keep flowing south regardless of the trade dispute. For an Alberta energy industry that depends on stable, predictable access to markets, that reliability commitment is exactly what it wants to hear. The pressure Carney is pushing back against is substantial and comes from within his own coalition. Ontario Premier Doug Ford said the week before that Canada could dismantle the United States if Ottawa and the provinces agreed to use energy exports as leverage against Washington. A new Angus Reid poll found 62% of Canadians want counter tariffs, with 34% favoring a dollar-for-dollar match. Under former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Canadian officials examined the possibility of using export taxes on key commodities such as oil, uranium, and potash to drive up American costs in response to Trump's trade policy. Carney is rejecting a strategy that carries genuine political momentum behind it. The leverage Carney is choosing not to use is documented and enormous. Canada is by far America's largest foreign source of oil. About 60% of U.S. crude oil imports come from Canada, and 85% of U.S. electricity imports come from Canada. And if you want the real story behind how Canada is still holding its ground through tariffs, wars, and hard times, hit join below to join the membership for exclusive documentaries you won't see anywhere else about Canada's progress and rise through uncertainty. Canada is also the largest foreign supplier of steel, aluminum, and uranium to the United States, and holds 34 critical minerals and metals the Pentagon is investing in for national security. American Midwest refineries are specifically configured to process Alberta heavy crude and cannot quickly substitute alternatives. The leverage is real. Carney's argument is that using it would cost Canada more than it would gain. The reasoning behind that judgment is strategic rather than sentimental. A supplier that interrupts deliveries for political reasons teaches every customer, American and otherwise, that its supply carries political risk. That risk premium follows the supplier into every future negotiation and every new market. Canada is currently working to sell its energy to buyers around the world, and its entire pitch to those buyers is dependability. The July 29th Xi Lissum's LNG deal with Germany's Uniper, a 20-year supply agreement, was built on exactly that promise of Canadian reliability. Weaponizing oil against the United States would undermine the reputation Canada is selling to Germany, Japan, and every other prospective customer. Carney's position reflects a broader shift in how he has framed the Canada-US relationship. In November 2025, he described that trading relationship as once a strength, but now a weakness, an acknowledgement that overdependence on a single market had become a vulnerability. His response to that vulnerability has not been to weaponize the dependence, but to reduce it. Carney has called Canada an energy superpower, noting the country holds the third largest oil reserves and fourth largest natural gas reserves in the world. The strategy is to convert those reserves into diversified global market access, not into a one-time political weapon against Washington. The diversification track is where Carney is channeling the energy strategy instead. Canada is building the Trans Mountain expansion, advancing a new 1 million barrel per day West Coast pipeline, expanding LNG exports through LNG Canada, Woodfibre, Cedar, and KSI Lisms, and signing 20-year supply agreements with European utilities. Carney has committed to doubling Canada's non-US exports. We are re-engaging with the global giants India and China, he said. The energy empire he envisions is built on reaching new customers reliably, not on cutting off the existing one. This does not mean Canada is defenseless. Carney has been clear that all options remain on the table for Canada's response if the White House proceeds with more tariffs, a comment that appeared to keep retaliatory measures available. Canadian trade officials are in Washington this week holding talks with their American counterparts, with Carney's stated primary aim being a comprehensive agreement that benefits both countries. What Carney has ruled out specifically is energy, export curbs, and taxes. Counter tariffs on other goods, provincial alcohol restrictions, and diplomatic measures remain available. He is drawing a line around energy, not around retaliation entirely. The distinction Carney is drawing separates two different kinds of leverage. Tariffs on American goods entering Canada pressure the United States without damaging Canada's reputation as a supplier. Cutting off oil or electricity exports pressures the United States, but simultaneously destroys the reliability that gives Canada value in every other market. Carney is willing to use the first kind and unwilling to use the second. His judgment is that a reputation for dependability, built over decades, is worth more than any short-term pressure that supply disruption could apply. The CUSMA context frames the stakes. The Trump administration said earlier in July it would not renew the trade agreement, triggering rolling annual reviews for up to 10 years, at which point CUSMA would expire unless all parties agreed to extend it. The 50% tariffs Trump threatened take effect August 19th. Carney spoke with Trump the week before, and they agreed to intensify trade talks. Within that high-pressure negotiating environment, with a majority of his own public demanding harder retaliation and provincial premiers naming energy as a weapon, Carney has chosen to protect the one asset he considers irreplaceable. Nearly 3.6 billion Canadian dollars in goods and services cross the Canada-US border every day. Canada is the top export destination for 36 American states. That deep integration is precisely what makes energy such a tempting weapon and such a dangerous one to use. Carney's message from Red Deer was that Canada's energy future depends on being the partner countries can count on for decades, through disputes regardless of politics. The oil stays flowing, the empire gets built on trust, and that trust, in Carney's calculation, is the one thing Canada holds that is truly not for sale.